Alrighty. There we go. um, all right. Had to check on a couple things here. Um, Welcome to this week's episode of Bob's Live. We're getting off to a little bit of a bumpy start. It seems like over the last hour, everything has decided to break on me. I've been troubleshooting printers and servers and a couple different things, like all at once in like the last hour. Uh, but it's time for Bob's Live. So let's jump right into it. Right now, if you've been outside today, the weather is pretty amazing. Right now it is 70 degrees, and there's actually a fire watch or like possibility of like fires right now. Um, I guess it's dry, windy. Um, so yeah, there's a statement from the National Weather Service about that right now. Um, but also today it is like close to 70 degrees. And then we're looking at 66 tomorrow, and then the temperature is going to drop off, and we're going to have a cool down. Um, but I wanted to say that to say that right now is an excellent time to get out in your landscape and get some work done. You might not want to be burning a brush pile right now with that weather statement, but it's an excellent time to get out into the landscape. And just this past weekend, I uploaded March's podcast. So with March, I kind of walked through each week and the gardening tasks ahead for the month of March. And then once we get into April and it's more into gardening season, I'm going to start doing weekly podcasts again where we look at the upcoming weather forecast and the gardening tasks, and then we take like one thing and dig a little bit deeper into it. So you can expect that coming out in April. And well, with the weather and everything the way it is, there's a lot you can be doing right now in the landscape. And one of those things, you don't want to really do it on a warm day like today. You actually want to do it in weather like we had over the weekend. It was nice and chilly and cold over the weekend. That is an excellent time to get out and prune fruit trees. So I went out, pruned my apple tree, and I thought I would share that as this week's kind of feature video. It was stinking windy, so I had to do something a little bit different in this video, and that is do a voiceover, which I am not the best when it comes to doing voiceovers. So maybe that's a skill that I need to practice. But anyhow, let's dig into it with pruning trees. Oops. I got the two videos switcherooed. Here we go. Pruning trees. Hello. It is a cold and windy day out here. In fact, I'm going to switch over and do a voiceover for the rest of this video because, quite honestly, it's going to sound like garbage if I don't. But it's actually the perfect day to prune a small tree like this. You want to do it on a cold day, but not when it's down below freezing. So right now we're just above freezing. My hands feel like they're freezing, but it really is the perfect time to prune a tree like this. So let me go ahead and get started before I turn into a popsicle. Alright, this is better. It's a little less noisy. When I'm pruning, I tend to look at a few different things, and I kind of prune in phases. The first pass, I look for any obvious issues. So mainly branches that are crossing over each other that are in direct contact. So the first thing that I started on is there was a spot in the tree where I actually had 3 branches that were kind of woven together. Then the next thing that I look for are any branches that are growing back toward the center of the tree. And those you definitely want to remove. And then I look for branches that are growing more or less down toward the ground and remove those. And then you also want to look for any obvious problems. So you want to remove dead wood, diseased, or damaged wood. So this past winter wasn't too rough. We did have one sort of snowy ice storm, but we didn't get enough ice to snap limbs. In years where you have like a heavier ice storm that snaps limbs, that's something that you definitely want to check for. And then overall, I'm just looking at the general shape of the tree. So my last pass, I sort of go through, and you have to think of what the tree will look like when it's completely loaded down with fruit. So something that I did is I went through and lopped off the ends of any overly long branches. And also if I had branches kind of growing in the same plane on the tree, so if you're looking from the bottom to the top, if they're growing like directly over top of each other, I look at once it's loaded down with fruit, if I can kind of imagine that, if those 2 branches would interfere with each other. And if they do, then I pick kind of the smallest one of the 2 to remove. And then the last thing that I didn't really address in this video, mainly because I couldn't reach it, I need to go back out with a step ladder, is the top of the tree. This one I'm kind of forming in what you would call a central leader type of tree, where you have one central leader going up, and my tree kind of splits off at the top. So I need to choose one branch to kind of be the central branch, and then kind of lop the other ones off. So that's the last thing that I need to do. Overall this year, I was just going through and reducing the overall just volume of branches of the tree. When it comes to fruit trees, you have to think about fruit production. A lot of branches means a lot of fruit, but that starts to affect the fruit quality because you're trying to supply nutrients to all this fruit. So you might have a large number of apples, but you're going to have smaller, lower quality apples. In the case of this tree, I wanted to bring down that number of branches. So I might have a fewer number of fruit, but hopefully I'll have higher quality fruit. And last but not least, something that I really didn't show in the video, because there weren't any on this tree, are any suckers that you would have coming up out of the base of the tree. So you want to go ahead and cut off any suckers. A lot of times with fruit trees, the upper part of the tree is grafted onto a different root stock. So if you get a sucker coming up off of the bottom of the tree, if it does fruit, it's going to have a different type of fruit and probably not very good quality. A lot of times when they're grafted, it is for the overall quality of the fruit, and the root stock is chosen from a slightly different species. What I do, when I'm weed eating in the summertime, if I see suckers coming up, I just whack them with the weed eater. I know it's probably not the best technique, and there's always a chance you might nick the actual tree itself, but if you're careful, you can kind of go in and lop off any suckers as they start to arise. And, well, that is the basics of tree pruning. On this day, my hands were freezing, and a few times I whacked my fingers, and you know, when it's cold out and you smack your finger, oh, that hurts so bad. So bad. But, well, that is the basics of tree pruning. Alright, overall, I helped shape this tree a lot. Took care of a lot of issues. There's still some minor things that I could do, but you don't want to over prune a tree. And, well, my hands are blocks of ice, so I'm going to go in and warm up. Woo-hoo! Yeah, it's cold. All right, so that is the basics of pruning. I mean, it is pretty simple. I learned how to prune fruit trees, and I'm sitting here watching the video play and thinking about it. Grandma standing outside with a broom, pointing up in the tree, going, "Cut that branch right there. Not that one, that one." So, yeah, it's one of those great memories. But yeah, pruning it's one of those things that's really hard to mess up. That being said, I was pruning a rose bush once. I had sweat in my eyes, couldn't see what I was doing, and yeah, made a big mistake pruning. But on something as big as an apple tree, it's really hard to mess up. The overall thing is just reducing the length of the branches and any obvious problems like branches rubbing against each other or growing back in toward the center. Okay, so moving on, I kind of got the videos flipped around. I wanted to touch on what's happening out in the greenhouse, and along with that, I have a couple of announcements. So let me jump over to our website, because we have a couple of events coming up, and it might be hard to read here on the screen, but on April 11th, I'm going to be down at the Bassard Library in Gallipolis at 6 p.m. that evening. So that's April 11th. It's on a Friday. And I'm going to be doing a presentation on raised bed gardening. So you can come out and join me for that. We haven't finalized the details yet, so I'm not sure if there's like a sign up thing on their website or not. Once I get more information, I'll update it on our website in the events section. So if you go under more on our website, in the menu, we have a section for events, and then right below it, the very next day on April 12th, on that Saturday, we're having our annual spring color tour. So our spring color tour is going to be Saturday, April 12th at 2 p.m. I know I've had a few people asking about that, when it's going to be. So we sat down, figured out a date, and that's going to be the date for it this year. Jumping back to our website, I recently completed a complete overhaul of our website. So this is the events page, and as I said, it's under the more section up here at the top. So if you go here at the top, we have home, locations, the how-to section where we have our Bob's blog, Bob's Live, which is what you're watching right now. And then we have a wholesale section for all of our wholesale customers. But under more, there's a lot of extra helpful information there. So we have stuff like the About Us page, information on employment, also educational outreach. But then we also have like our events section here. So it lists all of our upcoming events, so school tours, different things like that. Like this week, I have Belpre High School coming in on Thursday for a tour. And then on Friday, one of my fun tours that I do every year is a virtual tour for the University of Illinois. So it's their greenhouse management class. And that is always a fun tour because I get to kind of geek out with them and kind of tackle some higher level questions. But yeah, all of that information's over on our website. Another thing is our Weather Center page, which I recently overhauled it. So it has the weather here for the Mid-Ohio Valley, a shot of the radar, and then the cool thing that I was just checking on to see if it's actually working correctly is a weather alerts section. And what I need to do, yeah, that might be an issue. It's not a clickable link, so I need to do some more coding and figure out how to get that working as a clickable link. But yeah, you can head over there to the Weather Center. Also, it is under the how-to section if you go to the almanac. Oh, that's the podcast. But under the almanac page, we also have a link to the Weather Center there too, because they're so closely related. But anyhow, that's enough about our website. I do recommend going over and checking it out though. We recently completely redid it. It's a lot more friendly for mobile phones now. The menus are a lot easier to navigate. That being said, I am still trying to kind of figure out how to organize it a little bit better so it's easier to navigate. But yeah, stuff like that that is under the more section I think kind of get missed sometimes because it's like I can't have 50 things in the menu across the top. I have to condense it down somehow. So again, I lost my mouse. There we go. April 12th, Saturday, April 12th is going to be the Spring Color Tour. And on the tour, you can expect to see things like what I'm about to show you that's happening out in our greenhouse right now. So let's head out to the greenhouse for a little bit of an update. Hello, it is a cold and windy day. And yeah, I forgot that I got the videos flipped. Oh, it's been one of those days. Okay, greenhouse update. Hi, John Morgan here, and today I am out here in the greenhouse where we are seeing some of the first geranium blooms of the season. So let's take a closer look. So these blooms are just starting to pop, but here's the thing. In the next few weeks, these are going to get trimmed off. So that might sound crazy that they're just starting to bloom and then we're going to cut the blooms off, but that's for a good reason. We're actually playing a little bit of a trick on the plants. You see, in nature, let's take grass for example. Out in a pasture field, cows come along, munch off the grass. It tells the grass, hey, I've been eaten. I need to grow more plant and become bushier so something doesn't eat me. Well, we're basically doing the same thing here. We're tricking the plants into growing out and becoming more bushy. So you get a fuller plant as the end product. The baskets are on what is almost like a conveyor belt system. So it runs along these cables up in the ceiling, all the way down to the middle aisle down there. And each one of these systems holds about 2,500 baskets. And they'll all get trimmed by hand. So trimming these baskets by hand is a lot of work, but it's one of the ways that we ensure that we have a quality product, because each one of these gets touched and looked at to ensure that it's looking great. And that's a quick look at what's happening here at Bob's Market behind the scenes this week. And that's what's happening currently in our greenhouse. And well, with that, before anything else breaks, I'm going to go ahead and end the show for tonight. Yeah, it's been an interesting one. I don't see any questions in the chat. Let me check both of them. I've got multiple windows of chat open. But well, thank you for joining me for this episode of Bob's Live. And until next week, keep growing.